I'm doing well, man. It's great to be on with you guys.
Yeah, Mark, so give us a little feel. So you're going back and forth. The apology video was fantastic with the 3 Super Bowl rings in the middle finger. So give us a little feel about, for the Jet fan that wasn't locked in when you hopped on with the Pat McAfee show, critical about the Jets, the move of Sam Darnold, and the transition now to Zach Wilson being the second overall pick.
Yeah, it really wasn't even. It's funny how all that stuff happens because, one, as you guys know, social media isn't real, right? It's the very not so silent minority of people that get just sit around on the internet waiting to be offended by something. And so the whole principle of talking about the Jets on the McAfee show was the draft the draft as an overall perspective, how quarterbacks get elevated, how people are duped into believing, we're going to change the franchise with the next quarterback that's drafted high. And, my whole principle, and this goes back to what I believe at the core of football, dominate the line of scrimmage, and you're going to have a chance to win a lot of football games. And ultimately, what I was telling Pat McAfee and what I'll tell you guys is you've been duped, or the fan bases around the NFL have been duped into believing that every guy is going to cover warts. And it's just not the fact. If you look at the NFL in general, there are 4 or 5 quarterbacks in the league that actually will cover your warts. The rest of the quarterbacks in the league expose your warts. And so to sit there and think that, hey, we're going to put a guy in an untenable position, we're going to put a guy in a position to fail, and then be surprised when that guy fails. So it's about building a roster and building a football team. Now, I will tell you this, as a fan of the NFL, and I love the NFL, Robert Saleh, the guys that the Jets hired, one of my favorite NFL coaches. This guy I'm talking about leader of men, smart football guy, really connects and develops a relationship with his players. I love Robert Saleh. I think it's a great hire. But creating a culture and creating a football team that understands what it takes to win, hell, I'm watching it happen here in Denver. And anybody who knows me knows I'm the number one critic of the Denver Broncos. And I played for the Denver Broncos. A lot of young players think they're working hard, think they're sacrificing, think they're studying, think they're doing all this, and they're not doing anything near what it takes to win at a championship level in this league. So those are organizational issues that have to be addressed, and they're easy to talk about. They're very hard to actually address.
Mark Schlereth is our guest. Is it part of it, though, the change in just the rookie wage scale? Like Joe Douglas has acknowledged that the fact that the Jets could restart the financial clock on a new quarterback definitely played into their calculation about what to do with Sam Darnold. In some ways, is it the general managers, and working with the rookie wage scale, and general managers are way less risk averse. Like they'll keep swinging until they find the quarterback. Is that not playing into what we're seeing now in the NFL?
Well, of course, the rookie wage scale plays a role in everything. And it comes down to this. To me, I call it the 80-20 rule. 20% of the guys make 80% of the money. And so, when you find that guy, you're going to have to figure out how to manage that. But the bottom line, for a young quarterback to have success in this league, you have to have a great team around him. And, I always hear people say, well, they found it in Kansas City where they moved up from 24-10 and they got themselves Patrick Mahomes. Well, remember, they're winning 12 games without Patrick Mahomes. They're loaded on the offensive side of the ball before he starts playing and becomes an MVP. And he sits and gets tutored for an entire year behind Alex Smith, who got a perfect score on the Wonder League and was a fine mentor to a young quarterback. So I always look at how is the rest of your roster built? To me, if you just throw a quarterback in and say, hey, we're going to have this quarterback come be our savior, I just think that's unfair. Now, I'm not saying that the Jets haven't done good things on their roster this offseason, but there is a lot of work to do based upon where you started from. And giving your quarterback the best opportunity to be successful, to me, you have to have a damn good roster on both sides of the ball to give him the best opportunity possible, because there are going to be some learning curves. There are going to be some growing pains. And as any player will tell you, you know how you learn how to play in the National Football League? By getting your ass kicked. You get your ass kicked a couple times, and you start to realize, man, I don't like this in the red zone. I don't like this in this particular situation. There are plays that I hated when they called them when I was in the huddle because I knew, the pitfalls. Well, I learned the pitfalls in those particular situations because why? Because I got my ass kicked. That's what it takes. That's what it takes. And so for Zach Wilson to come in there, and by the way, one of my favorite quarterbacks that I looked at, in the limited time that I look at tape, because I'm not a college football guy. I'm not a college football analyst. I'm an NFL analyst. And so the limited time, he was one of my favorite guys. I mean, talk about ripping the ball, talking about not having supreme, talent around you, talk about putting it in tight windows, all those things. I thought he was exceptional. But he's still a learning curve to know what you like, what you don't like. And the only way you figure that out is by getting your ass kicked.
Well, the Jets know that, all right?
Yeah,
because that's what they've gotten, and Adam Gase knows that now as they transition to Robert Saleh. Mark, what do you think about Sam Darnold in Carolina? He handled himself really well here. He didn't play particularly well. There was not much around him. The coaching staff was bad, not a lot of talent. Do you think Sam can revitalize his career, rejuvenate his career with the Panthers?
Well, it'll be interesting. Yeah, here's the thing about playing in the National Football League. You're allowed to get better. And, you always worry about a guy who initially gets beat up, initially, loses some confidence. And we've all been through it. I've been there as well, where you lose some confidence, where things aren't going well for you, how you respond to those things. And you hope he didn't get trashed and injured so much that he can't overcome some of those things. Ryan Tannehill, it didn't go particularly well for him in Miami, right? He goes to Tennessee, sits on the bench for 5 or 6 weeks, then he comes in and takes over for Marcus Mariota, and he explodes on the scene. He's played pretty well. But I will say this, in playing pretty well, they're pretty limited in what they do. I mean, they throw it 23 times a game. They've got an unbelievable running game, a physical group up front. We all talk about, wow, look at the resurrection that Ryan Tannehill has been through. Meanwhile, they've got the nastiest group up front with a battering ram playing running back, and Ryan Tannehill isn't asked to do a whole lot. So can you put him in that situation in Carolina? Now, listen, I'll be the first to tell you, I think they've got really, great talent on the outside. You guys know Robbie Anderson, a little bit of a one-trick pony, but can flat out run. DJ Moore is a 1,200-yard receiver every year in and year out that people don't know about. He's a really good player. I think their tight ends are good blockers. I think they'd lack some production in the passing game. And Christian McCaffrey, we know, is phenomenal. But I'm just telling you, if you don't protect him, you don't take pressure off him by running the ball, the best coaches in the National Football League, the guys who have success, not only understand how to attack somebody's weakness, but more importantly, they know how to mitigate their own weaknesses. And if you don't understand how to mitigate your own weaknesses, you're going to get your ass kicked. That's just the way it is. So you better know what you're good at, what you're not good at, right? And you better make sure that you don't expose people. If you can't block people, you damn well better not get, get 5 guys out in the pattern every time, because you're in trouble. Ask the Kansas City Chiefs. Right. In the Super Bowl. Ask them what they did. Where you're talking about a team in Tampa that said, here we go, play 2 high safeties. We beg you to run it on us. Our linebackers are blowing out on their hook drops where they're supposed to be at 8 to 12 yards. They're getting 14 to 16 yards depth. We're asking you to run it down our throats, and you won't because of football hubris. That's on you for being stupid.
Mark Schlereth is our guest. You make it sound so easy, Mark, when you put it like that. So you're a big fan of Robert Saleh. You're a big fan of Zach Wilson. What's the most important thing that Saleh needs to do year one with the Jets to try to get this thing turned around and going in the right direction?
Well, I think, one, take the pressure off your young quarterback, and I like LaFleur, too, who he brought in as his offensive coordinator, did a great job in San Francisco, understands the mixture of run pass. Now, are they going to take that offense and be more 3-wide dominant like they are with the Rams and Sean McVay? Because it's the same offense that's run in San Francisco as the one in L.A. But the difference is L.A. runs it out of 3-wide sets most of the time, whereas San Francisco uses a fullback, and they use 21 personnel, and 22 personnel, and 12 personnel, and 13 personnel. And the thing about that personnel grouping that really makes it difficult is when you can come in and make people have to decide, hey, man, is this fullback? Because he's a dynamic player in Juszczyk in San Francisco. Is this fullback actually playing fullback, or is he playing the F, slot receiver, or is he playing the F second tight end? We have to make a decision as a defense on how we're going to match up to those things. Are they in 12 personnel with 2 tight ends? Is one of the tight ends playing fullback, so they're actually going to run it like 21 personnel? Or those are the decisions you have to make, and they give you clear advantages as an offense because you have to declare to the defense, or the defense has to declare to you what they're doing. And the other thing is it creates great matchups. So I'll be really interested to see from a personnel decision what they decide to do in New York.
Mark, you mentioned the Mahomes example out in Kansas City, really talented group. They traded up. They had Alex Smith. He sat. Jets draft Zach Wilson second overall. Would you sit him to begin the season? Or if he shows you enough in training camp, are you starting him day one?
I think that I would probably, if he shows you enough and he can manage all the – one thing about this West Coast offense, man, there is a lot of verbiage. There are a lot of pills that are plays that you can. So essentially you're calling 2 plays in the huddle, and you've got a candid aspect to those plays. There's a lot of things that you have to know in order to operate and orchestrate this offense. I just his athleticism, his ability to do all those things, it really comes down from the neck up how able he is to call those plays and to be in command in the huddle. I think that's really hard to do as a young player, just walk in and have that kind of command. So we'll see, but like I said, I think that kid has got a lot of talent, obviously. And if he can command that offense from the neck up, then I would say, hey, let's play him.
Mark, picking quarterbacks and drafting quarterbacks is so difficult to do and to project how guys are going to be on the next level. It's really hard, but you think that if you played the position, you might have a better understanding. Why was John Elway, and I know he's stepped back now as the GM, but why does John Elway have so much trouble finding a franchise quarterback for your former team?
Yeah, I think it is difficult, and they've done a poor job here, and they've done a poor job, and John did a poor job of drafting. In my opinion, it's funny. People always will look at it and say, well, in this particular draft, he got 4 starters. Even crappy teams have to start 22 guys, right? So you can draft 4 starters. If they should be backups, you're still going to suck. So that's something you have to look at. I think one of the things that's really hard is you spend your whole life or your whole career studying defense when you're an offensive player. So you study defense. So you're really good at understanding, hey, what's hard to block or what's hard from a coverage standpoint or what guys really translate well. I think sometimes when you're an exceptional player, a Hall of Fame player, a great player, why has Michael Jordan not been great when it comes from an ownership standpoint and a general manager standpoint or those type of things? Because you expect the average guy to be able to do what you did. What you did was off the charts ridiculous. Nobody can do it. So I think sometimes, one, you're an expert in what you found difficult to play against. So it makes it easier to pick on the defensive side. And 2, I think you have sometimes unrealistic expectations when you're a Hall of Fame player. And the game, I'm not saying you don't work hard, but I think the game comes a lot easier to you than it does to the rest of us.
Mark, want to get your thoughts quickly here on the other team here in New York. You mentioned that you're a big fan of Robert Saleh, a big fan of their new offensive coordinator with the Jets. What were your impressions year 1 of Joe Judge with the Giants?
I really enjoyed meeting with Joe Judge. A really football guy, and doing this job and working for Fox. I just study so much, man. I constantly study. I'm always in a playbook, always in the film, just trying to learn as much as I can to have more of a global perspective, to expand my aperture when it comes to the game and what I see. And, when you talk football with Joe Judge, man, he's a football coach. Every little thing is there's no thing that's too small. There's no issue that he doesn't want to put his finger on, and I just completely appreciate that about him. I'll also say defensively, the toughest film I studied this year. Who's your coordinator? His name is escaping my.
Patrick Graham.
One of the most dynamic, fun guys that I met with this year. But when you start looking at the way they operate coverage and the depth and the depth of coverage, the where they get to from different parts on the field. There are times I'm rewinding it 6 or 7 times. It's the longest film study I had on a defensive team this year because I had to rewind it 7 times, and half the time I'm guessing, what are they in? I don't know. You can't, and what they did to quarterbacks, I did a game against the Seahawks. They were phenomenal in their coverage. They ended up beating the Seahawks. They were incredible that way. But I really like Joe Judge. I like him as a football coach, and I really enjoyed talking to him. And defensively, I thought they got a lot better. Obviously, it comes to your quarterback, and can he take the next step? Can you create an offensive line and a running game that's more consistent? And can your quarterback, get through progressions and actually make good decisions? I mean, those, like, a lot of teams are dealing with the same thing, right? So, but I really enjoyed my time that I got to spend with Joe Judge and picking his brain about football. He's a very astute and intelligent football coach.
This one from 2 hours ago, Mark Schlereth responding on Twitter to a Jets fan. You're a Jets fan, so I forgive you for your ignorance. The Jets season ends every year in September. You're not familiar with people like me who played in the playoffs and Super Bowls. That's a mic drop there, Mark. How long you plan on continuing this Twitter beef with the Jets fans?
Hey, man, I love mixing it up with people on Twitter sometimes, just because they're passionate, man. They love their team. It's not my fault you're ignorant. It's your fault. But like I like mixing it up. And what you got to understand is, I go back to my college career. My buddies are so sharp, and they are razor sharp. And you walk into that locker room back in my college career, it's kill or be killed. So you want to mix it up. I mean, I've got a master's when it comes to mixing it up in a locker room. I know exactly how it works. So, most of the guys in the NFL that saw my little video and they love it because it's exactly how we do things in the locker room. We are on each other all the time. And so you want to mix it up. I mean, come get a taste. I'm not afraid.
Mark, the apology video is amazing.
It was good. I like this one where you said to a Jets fan, I Googled you. Nothing came up.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So anyhow, I'll mix it up a little bit. I'll let it die. Maybe I'll make another apology video. Who knows?
Mark, can I ask you which one of the 3 rings means the most to you?
Probably Super Bowl 32. The Broncos, I think 31, Packers 24, and a lot of that is because one, we were at the start of the week, we were like 13-point underdogs going in, and John Elway, we knew what he meant. I think in my generation, you knew football. You knew the history of the game, right? I think in today's generation, most of the young players, and this is not a bash on young players, but most of the players' understanding of the National Football League comes from playing video games. Ours came from watching the games and studying the games. So there's a difference from a generational standpoint, which, happens to every generation, right? We're all different, and that's fine. But we knew as an organization, as a team, the times that John carried teams to the Super Bowl and just got absolutely trounced in, the Giants, the Niners, and the Washington football team just crushed them, right? And so we knew that history. And being 11.5-point underdogs to kick off and not expected to win, that game, I always say, Super Bowl 26 against the Bills, we were the best team in the National Football League in Washington. There was no question. We're 8-point, 9-point favorites, That was pressure. Super Bowl 33 against the Atlanta Falcons, 8-point, 9-point favorites. We were the best team in the league that year, all year long. That was pressure. Playing against the Green Bay Packers, kind of on that house money, that to me was euphoric. I felt euphoria after that win. I felt relief after the other 2 wins. Thank goodness we won because we were supposed to. totally different feeling.
Hey, Mark, great job. Thanks for giving us an unbelievable last 20 minutes. Really enjoyed the conversation, and have a good rest of your Tuesday, all right?
My pleasure. Hey, and Jet fans, go Jets through September.
Mark, I'm sorry, man. The damage is done, dude. The damage is done. No go Jets at the end of an interview on WFAN is going to salvage this one. The smoke's going to keep coming.
No, you missed the last part. I said go Jets through September.
Oh. That sounds more appropriate. Yeah.
Mark,
keep bringing the heat, Mark.
Later.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Take care.